Greetings from the set of Metro and More at Metropolitan Community College, serving more than 50,000 students with over 120 programs at our 8 locations in the daytime, evening, weekends, or online. And I'm your host, Kent Pavelka. Welcome again to Metro and More. More of what you need to know about Metropolitan Community College. In the next half hour, we're going to be visiting about accelerated classes at Metropolitan Community College. Our guests, Daryl Hanson, the Dean of Business and Human Services at the college, and Ingrid Berlin, Dean of Enrollment Services. It's a treat to have you both back on the show. It's been a while.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, an exciting topic here to talk about, accelerated classes at MCC. But for starters, just by way of refreshing our viewers about your roles in relative to this and positions at the college. Ingrid, you want to start?
Well, as a Dean of Enrollment Services, I'm responsible for several areas, including financial aid and obviously appealing to new students and retaining the students we have. So accelerated courses fit nicely into saying, how can we meet some needs of additional students and help them achieve their degree, even though they may have a more non-traditional schedule?
I know I've asked you this before, but what's your career history?
I've been in higher ed for about 28 years, and in various capacities, even a short stint as a financial aid director, campus management, administration, enrollment on the advising end. So I just love higher ed, and especially when I found the community college, because this is the first community college I've worked with and for, and prior to that I was with a large private university and then a small private liberal arts college in Iowa. So
very good. It's been a while.
Yeah.
Last time we chatted, I think David Ho was on the show with us together, so it has been a while. What all is involved in your position here at the college and your background at MCC?
Well, I am Dean of Business and Human Services, and actually I began as a full-time instructor with the college in Human Services 27 years ago, and have been with the college in various roles since then. I've worked in mainly in both instruction and in the area of academic affairs as assistant dean, and then now as Dean of Business and Human Services.
Okay, let's jump into it. Accelerated classes at the college. Ingrid, maybe we could just start by having you visit this. Metropolitan Community College offers a variety of ways to take classes because
correct.
We have a variety of types of students.
that's correct.
Talk a little bit about that landscape before we get into specifically into accelerated classes.
So as I mentioned earlier, we're always looking to ways to meet our students where they are and what their needs are. So we have the traditional classroom experience, online, hybrid, a combination of online and in class. And so accelerated was just another opportunity for us to meet that need. Mm-hmm. So that's also a combination of students are able to take this at one class at a time. They could take 2 accelerated classes at a time. They really could accelerate the time it takes to complete their degree, or they could go at a regular pace, be done, but only be focusing on one class at a time. So it really seems to meet the needs of especially motivated and disciplined students, and maybe a little more of our non-traditional or working students. It's a nice fit.
So we have a challenge here with regard to the different kinds of students that avail themselves to Metro, right?
Absolutely. It's hard to meet the needs of all of the students.
I mean, compared to a lot of institutions, you got to offer a lot of different opportunities, right?
That's right. We do. It's just part of what people expect of us is to find ways to educate our community. So this was one that has been touched on in the past, and then was kind of slowed down for a bit, and we didn't really offer accelerated. And recently, in the past year, we have increased the offerings of accelerated, expanded it, it's broadened. We have some entire certificates available in the business area, and all the general education and other areas are jumping on board too to offer more and more classes in this fashion.
In fact, about 15 years ago, if you attended classes in the summertime with us, you would have had classes that were offered as 10-week classes, which is our traditional method, but also you would have had a variety of classes that were offered as 5-week classes, which is virtually accelerated on-campus classes. We did that for about 10 years, as I recall, and then we had some difficulties with working with the changes that had occurred in financial aid at that time. And so we slowed down some of those offerings, and they began to fade away. Just recently, though, we've actually followed through and with our main vision, which of course is to meet students' needs where they're at, rather than having students having to change their way of life in order to take their classes. And so since many students are learning much more effectively when they can focus on one thing at a time, these classes work particularly well for them. They can take it in 5 weeks, take another course at the end of that period of time, and in 10 weeks they've completed 2 classes just like other students.
So you, during the time where this was not available, you sensed that there was an interest in this when you could get back to it?
Actually, before I came today, I just took a little bit of time to look back to some of the offerings that we were doing in 2012. And our accounting program had reinstated an accelerated course during the summer. We had 8 students in accounting 1, and we followed it the second 5 weeks with an additional 8 students in accounting 2. They actually stayed through. It was a nice turnout for something that seemed to be new at the time. I followed through, and 2 years later, there were 17 students in that same accounting 1 class and 16 in the accounting 2. That's a great holdover. And this last summer, we actually offered it. The cap for that class is 20. We ended up with 23 in the class because they were begging to get in. And they followed through, and we ended up with 20 in the second class. So we've been delighted with that success, and it has followed through with our additional offerings. Not all of them are at the cap. Some of them people are trying out for the first time, but they do have quite a bit of experience with accounting.
One of the things I thought of when I was looking at this topic is it just reminds me of the summer school opportunities at a 4-year institution. Pretty much kind of the same thing, isn't it? Yeah.
It does. It appeals to what we call visiting students who might be attending an area university or out-of-state university and want to pick up some classes, and they like knocking it out in 5 weeks.
Sure.
So it's been really nice for the summer offerings. And then we found throughout the year that some students who kind of surprise us that they might be interested in it have shown up too. So we've literally served hundreds of students this year with this accelerated program without a lot of
Promotion?
yeah, without a lot of promotion and a lot of shouting it out. So now it's time to start promoting it and answer more of the needs, and we'll see more and more offered as the need is there.
You said you were kind of surprised at some of the people that took the opportunity. Surprised in what respect? I mean, types of students or what?
Yeah, I think we did see maybe some not so non-traditional students who showed interest in it and thought, and I think that's a conversation we have to have with them. If they're more of a traditional age, this may not be the best avenue for them to go, although there's highly motivated and disciplined 18 and 19-year-olds too, and they can do it, but they have to understand it moves at a quicker pace. If they haven't had an academic experience that's been real successful coming in, they may have a little trouble with the pace. But we have seen more interest come out of that, and that's a conversation the faculty member and on the front end when we're talking to students about registering them that we need to make sure they know about.
Let me make sure I understand. You're saying that most of the interest has historically been from non-traditional students, but you're finding that there's some first-year students that are trying
That's
to get
right.
through faster, probably.
When we put it out there, and more students working, and liking that faster pace, or seeing the positives to just focusing on one course at a time. They maybe have a hard time juggling more than one topic at a time.
Absolutely. They may be single parents, for instance, and they don't have the time to study several different courses between their class meetings. They have childcare needs and those kinds of things that take away from that. You know, one of the other things that comes about as a result of accelerated classes is that it's a much more efficient learning process for the student. Rather than stretching course material out over 15 weeks or 10 weeks, which is our traditional, they are actually doing it in 5. You spend less time rehearsing. You might remember how we did that for tests, you know. We'd go over it,
Sure.
over the material because we'd forgotten everything that happened before, and it sometimes made it very difficult to build on things. That doesn't happen in your accelerated classes. You actually can build very smoothly from one topic to the next until you've completed the entire course material. Students report that it's really changed their way of studying.
Well, that begs the question that theoretically then everybody could do 5-week courses, and you could get a 2-year degree in 1 year and a 1-year certificate in 6 months.
Well,
Theoretically, I guess.
it's a huge commitment.
It is.
So
It is.
Yeah.
It's not an easy, just to see that it's shorter definitely shouldn't be interpreted that there's less or that it's easier.
Right,
No.
because you've got to complete the same amount of work in half the time,
Absolutely.
right?
It's the same amount of work and it's the same quality of work. So you're not getting by with anything that's easier. You know, if you're going to be doing the same reports, the same studies and things that take that same commitment.
You're right, you're applying it so much quicker. So they're retaining it without reviewing it again to say, what did they want on this paper?
What did that mean?
It's fresh.
But having said that, it's not easy. You don't want to discourage people from. I mean, who's this for? I mean, who should try this?
I'll go back to saying motivated, disciplined students, maybe with schedule limitations or just an interest in maybe 10 weeks is a little long to be in the way they look at it to spend on a topic, and they kind of want to knock it out. And just knowing that they need to put their head down and do what's expected, and they could be successful in it.
I think she's described that very well.
Tell us what the opportunities are with accelerated classes. I mean, in what areas of study, and you want to talk about what you're offering currently, because I know you're building on this.
I'll let Daryl speak to that because he's kind of led the charge on really growing this quickly.
Well, we are offering them, as I've mentioned already, in accounting, and some of our business courses are also offering them. For instance, economics, both macro and microeconomics are being offered in this manner. We have an introductory to business class, which is an excellent one to start out with something like this because it's an excellent overview. There are some other areas that are beginning to try their hand at bringing back in accelerated courses, for instance, social sciences, psychology, sociology. Some of the languages are doing so as well. In fact, steeping yourself in a language to learn it is a really great way to do it.
I was going to say, I remember way back when, I thought the condensed version in the summer of a language was it was easier, really, in many ways.
It was. I took French in college in 2 weeks. I took a French course, and I remember it just as well as I do my Spanish.
Yeah, very good.
It's an immersion.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, the only reason you remember it is because you've been using it, because I don't remember any of my Spanish. There's a limited menu at this point in time?
There is a limited menu because, in fact, we are doing exactly what Ingrid was pointing out about. We're dedicated to having a quality presentation. This is not something that we're just throwing together. It is the same quality of course material and quantity of course material, and when you're condensing that down into a shorter period of time, it all has to be determined how you're going to put it together and such, so that you've got a good presentation. You're using the flipped classrooms, and many times it takes a great deal of thought.
What's flipped
classrooms? The flipped classroom is rather a recent innovation. Basically what it is your teachers always used to tell you, it'd be a good idea if you read the textbook before you come to class. But now what they do is they actually build the class upon your having read the textbook prior to and prepared your materials before coming to class, you may come into class and have not only a quiz to start out, but they actually begin working and exchanging student materials. The day of the instructor standing up and presenting a lecture is really gone.
You're expected to have that down when you walk in.
Right.
Yeah, I got you.
It's much more demanding of the students, but also more demanding of the faculty. Faculty members, for instance, when they would be presenting the course, they would present a problem or two and go through that problem with students. Well, if the students come prepared to class, they may be dealing with maybe 5 or 10 problems of different types. And so they have to be prepared on all of those each day.
And problems that they hadn't done a million times on their own without the student input.
May not have been their choice of problem.
Yeah. Back to accelerated classes. For folks out there who would be interested, what's the best way to find out what is available right now to take in terms of in an accelerated manner? Website?
The website is available, and it does indicate which classes are accelerated.
Okay.
It's also, as students go in to register, they're able to sort by which classes are available in any modality. So they can, online or accelerated has actually been separated out, so you can pull up any accelerated classes offered.
Because we've been talking about wanting to get the word out, and yet there's kind of a limited menu. So
There is.
yeah.
There is.
Yeah, so it was more of just the awareness is being created. We'll be a little more intentional about it.
Sure.
I think as we grow the number of things you can complete in programs or certificates you can complete in its entirety, because accelerated classes aren't new to us and they aren't new to community. People are familiar with them. One of the great things about it is we are, as Daryl said, we're responding to what the people need. It's not set up like they may have seen just for non-traditional students, and it's also extremely affordable. And you'll find other accelerated programs have been available for years, but they are literally 8 to 10 times the cost.
Good point. Good point. Very important point. And it's important also to talk about the fact that these accelerated courses, just like other courses at Metropolitan Community College, are offered in different modalities, as you said. Total, I mean, this is a question, but I mean, so you can take an accelerated class all at campus or all online, or a combination, which is called hybrid, right?
Yes, all of the above.
Yeah.
So you can, for instance, it may be set up so that you can take it in 5 weeks. The class ordinarily meets twice a week. Instead, now it will meet 4 times a week. So you'll have the exact same amount of meeting time, but it's taking place in a 5-week period.
But if I'm that student, I would have the option of doing it all online, right?
If it's available online, and not always available every quarter. But if that same course is available online, you'll do it in a 5-week period. You'll have deadlines that will be required. That'll be every week, and it's very important to stay up on the material. One of the worst things that happens is if we look at the comments that IGRU is making about those students who do best, those are who are dedicated. Well, if you procrastinate, you're going to be dead in this course very quickly.
Yes.
Or if you have personal problems that come along, an aunt dies or something and you're torn away, there's no way of making that time up. There are some things that we can do to help. For instance, we may be able to help you get into another traditional class section, in which case you might be even ahead when you start in that course.
Yeah, this is not, they don't have to commit to the accelerated only. So as we were talking about earlier, you can maybe take one accelerated course for 5 weeks at the same time as you're taking a 10-week course in something else.
Sure.
Or you could take one accelerated course the first 5 weeks and another the second 5 weeks, or just one the second 5 weeks because you had something personal you had to attend to the first 5 weeks. You can mix it up a little bit. So if you decide to take 2 accelerated courses every 5 weeks, it's not only going to be accelerated to finish that course, it'll accelerate you finishing your program.
Right.
And if I might, the next type that we would talk about, I think, would be the accelerated hybrid course, in which case you're going to be having both on campus and online. And which means, of course, that you are going to be doing, you might meet only once a week like the course does when it's 10 weeks, but it's only 5 weeks long. You're doing half the course online, and you'll have a great deal of responsibility there as well. So when you get out of class, your work just begins.
Yes.
And that's popular.
You're either in class or on the computer. One of the two things for
doing
5
something.
weeks. Yeah. I noted that to some extent the notes I took says that this is kind of perfect for working professionals.
Yes.
We haven't used those words. I
That's
mean,
right.
is that do you find that's the group that is most interested, or?
It's one of those groups. Again, it may also be for a student that's wanting to add something to the program that they're doing at a university, for instance, and they're wanting to stop in and finish a course very quickly that they need in order to move on in their program. And so they can take it 5 weeks and move on very quickly in their program at another university.
It is ideal for a working adult. The accelerated programs we referred to earlier, who've been around for 30 years, those were set up for students who worked because they got off work, and we have classes that are offered one night a week from 6 to 10. And then so it's set up exactly the same way. And that's ideal for a working adult who can get away one night after work a week.
Where do you stand now as far as building this? What's next in terms of classes you're going to add? Like you said, you've been meticulous about not trying to go too fast here, but what's in the works?
Well, we are working right now and focusing on adding some more of the general education classes. The business classes are also expanding, so that we're offering some classes that, for instance, in QuickBooks and computer-assisted accounting, so that people can use that actually in their workplace. And we're adding to those so that those will be available this summer.
We hope to go eventually, and whether this is 2 years or 5 years, that there'll be an expanded availability of full programs available where students are saying, coming in, I would like to go through the accelerated program.
For everything,
And
basically.
yes, and that's what we'd be working toward.
And so we would be in that reality of I'll get my 2-year degree in 1 year,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Indeed.
Yeah, that's great. What kind of feedback are you getting from both the public and the students who've done this recently and the faculty?
We've not yet taken formal surveys of our students on this because it has been such a rather short time returning. But I had one of my faculty members did do an informal survey of her students, and she had a class of business finance, which is a very demanding course. And she, at the beginning of the course, the first session, there was kind of a shock effect because the people did not realize how much work there was to do. You'd think with a shorter course we'd have less work to do. It was not the way it worked out. And yet,
Well, if there's going to be less work, you get less credit, right?
That's right.
exactly. But they're 60% of their way through the course now. They're in 3 weeks. And she again asked them what their thoughts were, and their comment was, "We'd take it again. Yes, it was a shock and it was hard getting started, but once we got going, it is great and it's just moving along so quickly."
Yeah.
And I really appreciating
Yeah,
it.
I know what you're talking about because I remember summer school,
Yeah.
and it's like, whoa, and
Yeah.
but in an odd sense, it's motivating.
It is, and
Definitely.
it's very reinforcing because you can see the results of what you're doing right away.
Right.
In these days of looking for quick reward, it feels like you're rewarded pretty quickly
Yeah.
with the college credit. I think there's a couple of other, personally I have someone I told about the opportunity for accelerated courses, and so I've talked to him after each course he took and loved it, and said he just, it worked perfectly for him, working full-time, in his in his early 30s, so he's juggling a lot of different many different life events going on, and he was able to knock it out. I think when Daryl mentioned there were financial aid, it made it a little more complicated. One thing to consider too is taking one course the first 5 weeks and one course the second 5 weeks actually it considers you a 3/4 time student. So that would be how your financial aid is determined. So you throw in an extra course in there, and you're a full-time student taking 3 courses, and most of it just 1 course at a time.
Wow. So do you do any, do you guide folks who express an interest in this? I mean, you just take, if somebody signs up, good luck, or how does that work? Because
More
about
how to set up the first day of class of here's what to don't you think the expectations are set?
In fact, what we've been doing in the business area is we send a letter to the student, and they usually receive that about a week before the course begins.
to get a
That-
feel for what they can
And
expect.
letting
Here
them
it
know,
comes.
you know, this is what's going to be expected, yes, and that you will not be able to skip class and still be on target with your program. And you're going to be expected to do certain assignments before you get to class, and it will be a very big troublesome problem if you don't. The results have been that people have come anyway. Now I don't know if it's because they didn't believe the letter or didn't read the letter, but you know, they generally have come and found that that was a bit of a shock still. And but nonetheless, they have set aside the time to do the work, and it seems like it's moved along pretty well.
That's great. People, I know you say you haven't done a study yet, but,
No, we have
but you had 2 anecdotal stories about people taking this.
And we will survey.
Well-
we now have enough students to survey and have it mean something.
Yeah.
So that would be the next logical step to get feedback.
Again, the website would be a good place to check this out as far as what's available currently. Anything I've not asked you about that you want to share?
No. I would point out that we have an additional story now. We have yours. You had the same experiences when you took accelerated courses
Yeah.
when you were in college.
Yeah.
And actually, one of our teachers had completed his doctorate by using accelerated courses.
Wow, that's
So,
amazing to
you
me.
know,
At a
it's-
graduate level, you
Yeah.
can, I mean, that would seem to be really hard.
Yeah.
Although I've never done a graduate
I
work, so I don't know.
He calls it demanding.
Yeah.
Yeah, he had his doctorate actually. That
Well, the irony of it all is this is probably best for, or is perfect for people who are busy and have time issues and want to focus and get it done, and yet it demands extra time in a sense during that time.
It's
does.
manageable.
Yeah.
It is
Yeah.
manageable. If they go in focused and dedicated to the outcome, it's manageable.
Okay, very good. Again, the website's the best place to get more information.
Yes, or to
MCC.
call, you can call the main number too, 402-457-2400.
Very good. Thanks, Ingrid.
Thank you.
Daryl,
Thank you.
we'll talk to you again.
Okay.
Take care.
And thank you for being with us again on Metro and More. Our goal is to better acquaint you with the mission, the reach, and the leadership of the college. I'm Kent Pavelka for Metropolitan Community College. If you have comments or questions about the program, please email us at metrovision@mccneb.edu. Thanks for watching.
This has been a MetroVision production produced by Metropolitan Community College.